Good evening and welcome to Divorce Support Anonymous Facebook Live. This is Kathey Batey. I'm your host this evening, as every Friday night, coming to you to contribute into your life on going through the trauma and the journey of divorce. Tonight we are going to talk about a topic that we cover in support groups, and that is a topic of negotiations. Now this is a pretty deep topic, so of course I'm not going to give you great depth, but I am going to help encourage you to understand how important it is that we become good negotiators. And that could be throughout the divorce and certainly after the divorce. I have met with many people who are just not comfortable negotiating. They're not comfortable in dealing in any type of confrontation. So I want to speak to that this evening. How do you stand up for yourself? In conflict, in bargaining, in negotiation, in mediation. How do you stand up for yourself? Many of you that I have talked with feel defeated. You're not used to, you never have had to or did very well stand up for yourselves. This is a new skill for many of you, but that's okay, because the good news is it can be learned. I know you feel defeated right now because you've spent so much time and energy on this negative relationship, and you'd feel pretty powerless. That's a common feeling that we go through in divorce. But it is so important that we learn now and for our future to become good negotiators and people who can stand up for ourselves. We must learn it, and we can learn it. Many times in negotiations, certainly in divorce, there are irrational thoughts you have and the other person has. So I want to give you some tools to help you to learn to stand strong, to stand up for yourself. I remember a dear friend of mine many years ago said, someone's going to feel uncomfortable here, and it doesn't always have to be me. And she was speaking about when she is in a confrontation or a negotiation, because many of us feel, we have to take it on. We have to absorb whatever the other person's decision is. We can't do that any longer. If that has been your history and your past, you cannot do that any longer. And this is true of men and women that I have met, that they do not know how to stand up for themselves, to negotiate, and to work through confrontations when there are large disagreements. It is a skill that you must learn and you can learn. So let's get started with some tips. How? How do I stand up for myself? How do I negotiate? The first place you have to start is right here. You have to believe that you matter as well, and that what you need and what you want matters too. To know that you are worthy to get what you want. But it is something that you have to stand up and you have to work for. The world is not going to hand it all over to you. And certainly if you're going through divorce and mediation or within the court systems, knowing how to stand up, you have to have it in your mind that it's okay that I stand up for myself, that I defend myself, that I protect myself, that I work through this divorce and have what I need to move forward. Now, we're not going to get everything we want, but I have met several people who just want to roll over and let the other person take everything. Well, that's not only unfair, it's just wrong. It's wrong because you have to move forward from this as well. So how important it is that we start believing, you know what, I matter too. And I know that many of you are really good at defending and standing up for your children, but not so good at standing up for yourself. So we need to change that. We need to become aware. Negotiation is a skill that I need to learn. And give yourself permission to matter. Believe in your head and your heart that you matter. Learn strength. Gain strength. How do we do that? We have to be open to learning. We have to be open to teaching. I have recommended to every one of my groups and many times on the Facebook Lives that you read the book Boundaries. That is the foundational book to start with as you begin in negotiations and start believing that you have value as well and how to negotiate for yourself. Boundaries is the name of it. It's written by Dr. Henry Cloud and Townsend, Dr. Townsend, and it is an incredibly important book. I think one of the reasons I believe in it so strongly is because I happened to go to their workshop when they were doing workshops around the country and learned so much from them immediately before I went through my divorce. And I really believe that it was something that God planned for me and planted for me to be able to learn those boundaries, to learn how to stand up for ourselves. So we must learn. That's a key foundational book. There are other books out there on how to negotiate, how to stand up for yourself. But start with the Boundaries book. So we have to believe that we are worthy and it's okay that we stand up for ourselves. So how can we prepare as we go into a negotiation? Realizing a lot of them are spur of the moment, but if you're going through a negotiation or a mediation, there are ways that you can prepare. How can you prepare? Well, you can find out what knowledge you need beforehand. If you're going into mediation, you need to know all your assets, all your debts, all your tax liabilities, lots of information that I can either help you with, or your attorney is, if you have one, is certainly working through that with you. So have the knowledge that you need. What do you need to know beforehand, before you go? And that could be if you go to negotiate for a car, what do you need to know beforehand? You need to know the Blue Book cost. You need to know what other dealers are offering. There's a multitude of things that you need to know. So find out what is that knowledge that you need to know. And then you need to prioritize what's really important to you. What's really important to you? Do you need that 2019 Ford Escape in red? Or do you just simply need a vehicle to give you transportation? Know what your priorities are. What's important to you? What are those core values that you really need? Maybe as you search for a car or you go into mediation, you know what your financial needs are. I hope you do. And what would work for you to survive on, to live with. And know your priorities. What's important? What is important to you? Where can you give? Where will you give? And where will you not give in? I always advise folks as they are going into a mediation or to meet their lawyer that they list all of their assets, all their debts, and then they prioritize what's most important to me right here. What are those areas that these are critically important for me? This column, I could live without it. And then the other column is, what do I not care about that I would gladly give away and negotiate with in the mediation? So know your priorities, where you would give in, where you would not give in. And then think about, as you go into this negotiation of any type, what are the what ifs that I may be confronted with? What if the dealer says to me, you have to have so much down, or the financing restrictions, or I'm trying to come up with an example here, but think about what could possibly come at you. What are the what ifs that may come at you? Certainly when you're in a negotiation, in mediation, your lawyer should be helping you determine what are those what ifs, what are those questions that may come at me that I need to be prepared for. And when you know, you can be more prepared for a comeback in any type of negotiation. So just be prepared as you can and think of those what ifs. So the time has come and you are going into a mediation or a negotiation. I want to give you some how-tos, some tips here. First of all, when things get tense, I want you to give yourself permission to breathe, to simply breathe. What that does is that engages our frontal brain, which is where our command center of our brain is, and it allows us to think clearly. realizing this is business, and the better we can put aside our emotions, the better off we're going to be in negotiations of all types. So watch for those knee-jerk reactions, especially in mediation. People can get sabotaged by their emotions. Don't have those knee-jerk reactions. Take that deep breath. You may be breathing a lot of deep breaths in mediation or in a negotiation, but that's okay, because that helps you keep control and not go off the deep end and not get frustrated and cry in the negotiation or in the mediation, but it just will give you opportunity to give yourself some space. So be sure that you are taking those deep, intentional breaths. Sounds simple? You just wait. When you are in a tense situation, how incredibly important it can be for you. Another way to be calm and rational is give yourself time. Where is the pressure coming from for this mediation? Where is that pressure? Is it superimposed? Is it real? Is it something that someone is trying to pressure you to make a decision on? Is it theirs? Is it yours? Is it a court date? Is it a deadline? Where is the pressure coming from in this mediation? Because you have to give yourself time, recognize where those pressure points are coming from, and be able in any negotiation or mediation to walk away, to say no and not settle, and not to give in if the offer that has been given to you is totally unacceptable. Because there's another day for mediation. There are other vendors for cars. So I'm hoping that this is going to give you and is giving you some practical sense of the need that you have to not only have negotiation skills, but to have to sharpen your skill, to know that now it's a new day, it's a new time, and you do need to sharpen that skill. Another thing that I found is very important is learning to speak up for yourself. Not only stand up for yourself, but learning to speak for yourself. I mean, you may have this great attitude, but you have to articulate it. You have to be able to state it. So what are those words that you might say, again, that removes the emotion out of it and gives you the power to turn things down or to change things? For example, a response may be, that will not work for me, or that is not acceptable. Again, we're keeping those emotions out of this negotiation because they only make it messy, make it messier. So keep your emotions out. Do not lose control. Critically important. And don't be afraid to try later. You can always revisit the car dealership. You can always go back to a mediation if you're not limited with court dates and times. So don't be afraid to try again later. Just because it didn't work the first time does not mean that it won't work the next time. Dynamics could change a little bit. People can change. Their thoughts can change. So don't be afraid to come back and try later. But don't surrender. Don't surrender. You can willingly negotiate and participate, but don't surrender and give up and say, this is too hard, this is too difficult, this is too stressful, too painful. You can't do that because your future depends upon it. That you do stand up for yourself, that you learn the skill of negotiation. Know what you're fighting for. Again, know those priorities. Know what's critically important. You and I would fight through the court systems for a very long time if it was about our children. But there are some things that just aren't worth fighting for. So know what's important to fight for. And I have had people spend thousands and thousands of dollars to fight it out in court when it really exceeded the value of what they were fighting for. Again, because our emotions can take over. We want to prove a point. You don't need to prove anything. What you need to do is be wise. to be intelligently making the wise decisions. And again, let me say, invite God into this situation. Yes, into the mediation. Yes, into the negotiation for the car or whatever place that you find yourself needing to negotiate. Invite God. He is the owner of wisdom. He is wisdom. He is discernment. He can guide you through this, even if you've never been through it before. And 99% of you going through divorce have never been through it before. So I want to leave you with 3 points to conclude this evening. And first of all, negotiation is a skill that you must learn. You must learn. You must sharpen. And it is a skill that's going to serve you well throughout your single life. Number 2, determine where the pressure is coming from. Who's causing this pressure? Is there a real deadline or a court date? Or is this intimidation by someone else who's trying to strong-arm me to make a decision? Think clearly. Think clearly about what is going to benefit you long-term. Don't just think short, immediate. And number 3, keep the emotions out of it. Sadly, when I do mediations, I speak to the couple and their attorneys and I say, what this relationship has come down to today is a business transaction. And we have to use our greatest business sense to get through it. I wish you the best on your next negotiation. And truly, truly learn the skill to speak up for yourself. And you will be amazed, the skill, once you learn it, how well it is going to serve you and bless your life and the lives of your children. Have a great weekend. I will be next Friday night. I will see you there. I currently have a virtual group going on, and we're starting another virtual group November 7th. Have a local group if you're local to Grand Rapids. I right now am in Tennessee and visited a couple churches to talk to them about Divorce Support Anonymous. So if your church or community does not have a program, get in touch with me and we'll talk. With that, we'll wish you a great weekend, a wonderful Friday night, and God bless you as you negotiate your future decisions.